Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are now on page 550 in the chapter Knowledge by Identity and Separative Knowledge, and the paragraph is near the bottom of the page. It is then this double wall of self-imprisonment.
So, we will just see what he said in the previous para, and then we'll read what we have to read today. So, what are the reasons for our being shut off from our own depths as well as the world outside? We don't know ourselves, nor do we know the physical world fully. We know only the superficial aspect. So, what is it that is causing this obstruction? He's asking. We find a subtle wall. We find a subtle wall between our subliminal self and the surface being, which prevents communication. There is another wall that separates us from the external, not self world. There is a wall that separates us from the physical world and a wall that separates us from our own inner reality. The wall that is, let me read the whole thing first. We are doing the summary. Okay. The inner being can be glimpsed and glanced at through crevices and portholes. The inner wall is the movement of our desires, wants, likes, dislikes. In the absence of these desires, the inward view becomes clear. Otherwise, largely, the inner being, the intraconscient, is invisible to us. We don't see our own inner being, neither the inner mind, inner vital, inner physical, nor the psychic being. But we are cut off from the outside world too by our ego wall. In fact, our petty smallness has to be protected from the infinite vast powers of the cosmos. Otherwise, we would be swept off our feet. If a physical storm can cause the damage we see around us, how much more would the powerful forces of the cosmos harm or even destroy us? To bridge this division, nature provides physical senses so that at least a surface contact is established with the external world. Nature very kindly gives us senses to experience the external world. After all, the world provides all our needs: food, drink, social contacts, possibilities of self-development. But even here, the contact is minimal and superficial. Having said that, our ignorance and blind littleness does not sensitize us to the inflow of universal forces into our outer nature of body, life and mind. There is a constant interaction between individual and others and the physical, vital and mental forces of the universe. But all this is unknown to us. This is what he said in the previous para. Neither we know the physical world properly, nor do we know ourselves properly.
So the question remains for us in Oroville, when there are two totally different sides and no possibility of harmony, because neither will communicate with each other, what is to be done?
We have to ask the divine.
That's the answer we all come to.
This is a process not only in Oroville, but everywhere. Yes. The clash of forces are there everywhere. So it is by the clash of forces that things work out.
By the clash of forces.
Yeah. Everywhere. There's so much of... In fact, we have the dualities here in the physical world. Truth, falsehood, hot, cold, good, bad. Everything is dualistic. So there is a constant clash between them.
So when Mother says it may be through crashing circumstances,
Yes.
is that the clash of forces?
No, that is different.
Ah, that's why I'm asking
No. The clash of forces is normal everyday event.
you. Okay.
But what Mother is saying is, there could be a huge crashing circumstances, means all your values will be destroyed. Okay? Or it could be even worse, it could be a physical destruction.
It could be.
A physical destruction. Could be. It's always hanging over our heads, no?
Yeah.
The Russian-Ukraine war is going on. Any minute it could become on a much larger scale. I hope not. So, this para we are going to read now. It is then this double wall of self-imprisonment, this self-fortification in the bounds of a surface ego that is the cause of our limited knowledge or ignorance. And if this self-imprisonment were the whole character of our existence, the ignorance would be irremediable. But in fact, this constant outer ego building is only a provisional device of the consciousness force in things, so that the secret individual, the spirit within, may establish a representative and instrumental formation of itself in physical nature, a provisional individualization in the nature of the ignorance, which is all that can at first be done in a world emerging out of a universal inconscience. Our self-ignorance and our world ignorance can only grow towards integral self-knowledge and integral world knowledge in proportion as our limited ego and its half-blind consciousness open to a greater inner existence and consciousness and a true self-being, and become aware too of the not-self outside it, also as a self. On one side, a nature constituent of our nature, on the other, an existence which is a boundless continuation of our own self-being. Our being has to break the walls of ego consciousness which it has created. It has to extend itself beyond in its body and inhabit the body of the universe. In place of its knowledge by indirect contact, or in addition to it, it must arrive at a knowledge by direct contact and proceed to a knowledge by identity. It's limited, finite of self. It has to become a boundless finite and an infinite.
So how soon is that going to happen?
It depends on the individual.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Doesn't look too rosy right now.
He's talking of the individual because he's talking of ego and the wall inside and the wall outside. It's the ego. He's talking of the individual. And so the individual has to get out of the indirect separative knowledge and by growth of consciousness go to the direct separative knowledge and then knowledge by identity. That's a goal. That's what he's saying. And this is not possible if the conditions are permanent. If the ego is permanent, you can do nothing. But the ego need not be permanent. That's the whole point. I'll read the summary and go on to the next para.
Okay.
It is what we have read just now in different words. It is then this double wall of self-imprisonment which is also a self-fortification and protection which causes our ignorance. So Srinath's way of looking at things is always the negative side but also the positive side. If we are not limited, the vast forces of the universe would crush us. We are just like a small ant. So we need to be protected. Just like the plants planted on the footpath, on the pavement, has to be protected at first. If it is not protected, goats and cows will come and eat it up. So we also have to be protected if we are to develop, because these vast forces would crush us. So Swami is saying something good about the ego and the walls. Okay. But if these walls were permanent, our ignorance would be permanent without possibility of cure or redemption. But we must note that the artificial separation by the device of ego is a temporary creation of nature to protect us. As we grow in consciousness, strength and largeness, these walls can be dismantled and we can open outwards and identify ourselves with the universe, cosmic consciousness, and plunge inwards to plumb the secrets of our inner existence. Our consciousness can break inward by the silence of the vital movements, samatha, and outwards by the silence of the mental movements, self, witness, Brahman. The finite small individual can become the vast cosmic infinite being. He can become. So, that's what we just now read. So we read the next one.
Yes.
But the first of these two movements, the awakening to our inner realities, imposes itself as a prior necessity, because it is by this inward self-finding that the second, the cosmic self-finding, can become entirely possible. We have to go into our inner being and learn to live in it and from it. The outer mind and life and body must become for us only an antechamber, not the main building. All that we are on the outside is indeed conditioned by what is within, occult, in our inner depths and recesses. It is thence that come the secret initiatives, the self-effective formations, our inspirations, our intuitions, our life motives, our mind's preferences, our will's selections are actuated from there. Insofar as they are not shaped or influenced by any insistence, equally hidden, of a surge of cosmic impacts, but the use we make of these emergent powers and their influences is conditioned, largely determined, and above all, very much limited by our outermost nature. It is then the knowledge of this inner initiating self, coupled with the accurate perception of the outer instrumental self, and the part played by both of them in our building, that we have to discover. We have to discover the soul, we have to discover the self.
Yeah, this is a little complex though.
Right.
He says that the outer is determined by our inner. The outer is determined by our inner self. But I don't see that exactly.
He's saying that the real soul, which has passed through many lives, has acquired experiences and has grown, and that is reflected in the outward, but very imperfectly.
Okay, very imperfectly. Yes.
It tries to guide you. So if we have contact with the self, then the guidance is perfect. If not perfect, largely true. But if we don't have any contact with the inner being, still there is some influence, but we are not aware of that influence coming from inside. It is also true that the world environment conditions you. That also is true. Okay. So there is an inner conditioning and an outer conditioning. And with the combination of these, man grows. With every life, there is a growth of consciousness. Okay? This is what we have to discover. So, I am reading again the summary, very small para, and then we'll go on. But in the sequence of self-discovery, the inner awakening must come first. He's saying that outwardly if you go, you will get lost. So first you have to discover your true being. You have to go inside, find your psychic being. But he also says going inwardly doesn't mean necessarily horizontally. You can also go up to the self. Okay? You have to discover both psychic being and self. It is but the sequence of self-discovery, the inner awakening must come first. It is our intra-conscient that makes possible the rise into the infinite. The psychic emergence allows and makes safe the spiritual transformation and further ascent into the gnosis later on. So, if the psychic does not come forward and you go into the cosmic consciousness, there are a lot of dangers, because it's like climbing a staircase which is not well built. You might break your bones by coming down. There can be psychological disturbances. It's not uncommon for those who are trying to do yoga to lose their balance for some time at least. Sometimes permanently in this life can happen. So the psychic coming forward is a great protection, because the psychic has got an unerring view of things. It cannot make a mistake. It tells you exactly what to do and what not to do. Okay, so in fact, it is the inner being that largely determines, secretly of course, what we are without. Living within our body, life and mind must become our antechamber, our vestibule. The soul within sends its intimations, inspirations, guidance to the outer nature of body, life, mind. Of course, the outside environment also molds and conditions us. But it is essential to learn to live within and know our real self, the psychic, the true mind, the true vital, the true physical. It is this inner knowledge that allows us to know our outer nature also. So we have to know our inner being first, then we can go to the outer. On the surface, we know only so much of ourselves as is formulated there, and of even this, only a portion. For we see our total surface being in a general vagueness, dotted and sectioned by points or figures of precision. Even what we discover by a mental introspection is only a sum of sections. The entire figure and sense of our personal formation escapes our notice. But there is also a distorting action which obscures and disfigures even this limited self-knowledge. Our self-view is vitiated by the constant impact and intrusion of our outer life self, our vital being, which seeks always to make the thinking mind its tool and servant. For our vital being is not concerned with self-knowledge, but with self-affirmation, desire, ego, domination. It is therefore constantly acting on the mind to build for it a mental structure of apparent self that will serve these purposes. Our mind is persuaded to present to us and to others a partly fictitious representative figure of ourselves which supports our self-affirmation, justifies our desires and actions, nourishes our ego. This vital intervention is not indeed always in the direction of self-justification and assertion. It sometimes turns towards self-depreciation and a morbid an exaggerated self-criticism. But this too is an ego structure, a reverse or negative egoism, a poise or pose of the vital ego, pretension. For in this vital ego, there is frequently a mixture of the charlatan and mountebank, the poser and the actor. It is constantly taking up a role and playing it to itself and to others as is public. An organized self-deception is thus added to an organized self-ignorance. It is only by going within and seeing these things at their source that we can get out of this obscurity and tangle.
Not very positive.
Pardon?
Not very positive about the vital.
Yeah, so the vital is always playing games with you. It pretends to be what it is not. And we always like to present ourselves to the public in the best view possible. So we hide certain things and say certain things that does that. So the vital is an imposter. He is using the word charlatan and mountebank. So it's an imposter. It's constantly pretending to be what it is not. And fools you also. Fools oneself. That's what he's saying. So, again a summary of what we have read.
Good, yes.
And then we'll see what. On the surface, we know our superficial nature only to the extent that our self, true inner being, expresses, manifests, and formulates itself, which is obviously very partial. We cannot, from this scanty information, know our true being. Not only is there diminution, but there is also degradation and distortion. When the spirit is coming down, there is a diminution, but also a distortion and a degradation. Our mental view of ourselves is constantly vitiated by our vital, which tries to make mind its slave and succeeds mostly in doing so. Our mind may try to seek knowledge, but our vital is not interested. It is only engaged in self-assertion and satisfaction of desires. Our vital tries to present itself to others and even to itself as a glowing, pleasant, but fictitious image. The ego is a big charlatan and an impostor. It not only praises itself, but also depreciates itself and takes a morbid pleasure in its pretended honesty of self-humble valuation. Thus, to ignorance is added self-deception. Now, this is very interesting. Usually we think that ego is that which gives you self-confidence and self-assertion and sense of superiority, lauding it over others. But these are only results of ego. The ego is that which makes you feel separate from others. And it can have a negative thing also. Humility is also ego. When someone comes and says, I want you to do this work, and no, I am not capable, I am very weak, I can't do. Self-depreciation is also ego. It's not humility. No.
But many people have this feeling of themselves being totally unworthy.
That comes at a certain time in the spiritual life. You understand that you are nothing. But it does not bring in a negative feeling of depression. It's a very clear-sighted thing that your position in the universe is nothing. It is just a small dot.
Yeah, I know nothing, I am nothing. Yes.
But there can be pretension also in that. There can be also a pretension. I know I am nothing, but it's only an outer formulation. Inside you don't think you are nothing. That also is possible. So complicated is the human psychology. So, for a larger mental being is there within us, a larger inner vital being, even a larger inner subtle physical being other than our surface body consciousness. And by entering into this or becoming it, identifying ourselves with it, we can observe the springs of our thoughts and feelings, the sources and motives of our action, the operative energies that build up our surface personality. For we discover and can know the inner being that secretly thinks and perceives in us, the vital being that secretly feels and acts upon life through us, the subtle physical being that secretly receives and responds to the contacts of things through our body and its organs. Our surface thought, feeling, emotion is a complexity and confusion of impulsions from within and impacts from outside us. Our reason, our organizing intelligence can impose on it only an imperfect order. But here, within, we find the separate sources of our mental, our vital, and our physical energisms, and can see clearly the pure operations, the distinct powers, the composing elements of each, and their interplay in a clear light of self-vision. We find that the contradictions and the struggles of our surface consciousness are largely due to the contrary or mutually discordant tendencies of our mental, vital, and physical parts opposing and unreconciled with each other, and these again to the discord of many different inner possibilities of our being, and even of different personalities on each level in us, which are behind the intermixed disposition and differing tendencies of our surface nature. But while on the surface, their action is mixed together, confused and conflicting, here in our depths, they can be seen and worked upon in their independent and separate nature and action, and a harmonization of them by the mental being in us, leader of the life and body. There is a footnote, Manomaya Prana Sharira Neta, from the Mundaka Upanishad. It means to say that the mind should be the leader of the life and the body. Or better, by the central psychic entity. Is not so difficult. We have to read this sentence by eliminating the parenthetical phrase.
Yes.
So I'll do that just now. But while on the surface, their action is mixed together, confused and conflicting, here in our depths, they can be seen and worked upon in their independent and separate nature and action, and a harmonization of them by the mental being in us, leader of the life and body, is not so difficult, provided we have the right psychic and mental will in the endeavor. For if it is with the vital ego motive that we make the entry into the subliminal being, it may result in serious dangers and disaster, or at the least, an exaggeration of ego, self-affirmation and desire, an enlarged and more powerful ignorance instead of an enlarged and more powerful knowledge. Moreover, we find in this inner subliminal being the means of directly distinguishing between what rises from within and what comes to us from outside, from others, or from universal nature. And it becomes possible to exercise a control, a choice, a power of willed reception, rejection and selection, a clear power of self-building and harmonization, which we do not possess or can operate very imperfectly in our composed surface personality, but which is a prerogative of our inner person. For by this entry into the depths, the inner being, no longer quite veiled, no longer obliged to exercise a fragmentary influence on its outer instrumental consciousness, is able to formulate itself more luminously in our life in the physical universe. He is talking of the intraconscient. We have a outer nature of body, mind, life. We have an inner mind, inner vital, inner physical. This is the intraconscient. Okay? So, and then we have in subliminal, and then we have a superconscient. This is what we really all are. If we want to understand the intraconscient, we can give an interesting example, and then it will be clear to us. Suppose you are a house. You are sitting in the front room, and your senses are the windows and doors. You are looking out into the physical world through your windows and doors. You are sitting on the front room. But inside, there is the kitchen garden at the back. When you are sitting in the front room, there is a ceiling on top. You don't see what's outside. You see only a little bit of the street outside yourself. That's what we see the physical world to that extent. But when you go into your house, usually at the back, there's a kitchen garden that is open to the sky. That's your intraconscient. So when you go into yourself, you are not bound by any ceiling. You are open to the universe. Then you can see your own being, inner vital, inner mind, inner physical, and you can also contact your psychic being. And you are in touch with the universe. You can see all that is there in the universe. But this can be very dangerous, he says, if you are not prepared for it. So you have to purify yourself first by the psychic and then go inside. And when you are in touch with the intraconscient, you can see clearly from where your thoughts are coming, from where your emotions are coming, whether it's coming from outside or from others, or your own being is guiding you. All this can be seen clearly in the intraconscient. Not only that, you can control. He is saying you can control, you can say, I don't want this influence. You permit certain forces to come into you because they are helpful to you. Exactly like Sri Aurobindo did in Baroda. He saw the thoughts coming and he said no. And the thoughts wouldn't enter into his mind. So that is possible in the intraconscient.
But first you need the psychic being. You must be aware of the psychic being first.
Then it is safe.
And then it's not, then it's not.
Otherwise, as I said in the previous one, through crevices and portholes, you can get glimpses of your inner being. It's possible.
Yes. Very good. So next time we'll begin
in its essence.
In its essence.
554.
Very good.